Carrie, originally the parents were pretty outspoken when this first came out. Why aren't they here with you today?
Well, I don't know for sure. I will tell you that as soon as I got the news from the DA, I called Matt Araiza, gave him the good news. He was very happy. I heard his mother crying in the background. I mean, obviously a very happy family tonight. I invited Matt to come here at 5, but I haven't heard from him all afternoon.
What specifically did they say about the case that brought them to the point where, the tipping point where they couldn't make a case? Was it the fact that the victim, the fact that the woman who made this complaint was intoxicated? Was it the circumstances?
Let me say this, because she knew I was in a trial today, she knew I didn't have much time, so we didn't go into a lot of extra talking about why they made that decision. I will tell you that she did come to my courtroom a little bit later in the afternoon. We spoke just very briefly before my jury came in for the other case, and I thanked her again. I gave her a big hug, and I said, you know, you did the right thing. And I'm sure she and I will talk probably the next week or so about what factors led into that. But
was it Summer Stephan?
No, Tricia Amador was the
Okay.
DA assigned to the case.
Got it. But she never did tell you specifically what it was about the case that they weren't going to take it.
I'll put it this way: she and I have talked a lot over the last several months about this case. Many different times we've met and talked about it, and this is my investigator. She did a heck of a job on this case. We turned over a lot of information to the DA's office about things that my investigator had found, and I like to think that was a big factor in the DA's office's decision. But I'll find out soon enough when I talk to them about it.
Well, you got lots of experience, and you know the district attorney can, indict a ham sandwich. So what was it that there must be something about this case that they don't see?
I think a big factor, and I don't know this for sure, but my big guess is, I think some of you have seen the video that was uncovered by the alleged victim at a different party right around this time, where she's bragging about being 18 years old. She's talking about some other things that I think probably led the DA's office into making this decision, at least partially, is my guess. I do know that there was some video taken at the house that night that I haven't seen. My best guess is that was probably good for the defense as well.
Carrie, you've been pretty confident that this is the way things were going to turn out from the very beginning when we spoke to you right after the initial lawsuit was filed back in August.
Right.
Why were you so confident then, and is it the same reason that you believe the district attorney may have decided not to pursue?
I'll put it this way: I had many long talks with Matt Araiza, and I can't say that I never know when someone's lying to me, because that does happen sometimes, but I think I have a pretty good lie detector, so to speak, being in this job for 25 years, and I never, not even for a second, thought that he was lying to me about what happened that night. He told me the truth, he told us the truth, and I felt confident based on what I knew after all these months that they would reject the case, and I was right. I was still fearful for some degree, because they know everything. We only know part of it. But I was confident enough to say that I thought they would reject the case, and they did.
Mr. Armstrong, what does this mean for your client moving forward? I know there's still a civil case, but...
There's still a civil case. Obviously, he's got a civil defense attorney for that, a really good civil defense attorney, and he released a press release today about that. It's my understanding there's probably going to be a civil answer filed in the civil case in the next few days, or maybe a week at the most. That'll get depositions started. And you know what? This complaining witness, she'll have her day in her deposition. She'll have her day in court. So that's the next step for Mr. Araiza. I will tell you this: he's been training here in San Diego ever since he got back from Buffalo. He wants to get back in the NFL, and I'm pretty sure he will get back into the NFL eventually.
Gary, if you mentioned this, not today, but in another situation, I didn't hear it. But what was going to be your defense? Was it a consensual situation, or
100%, 100%. Now, and the other defense was, because you have to worry about statutory rape as well. It's actually called unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor. That obviously worried me even more to some degree, because she was 17. But the fact is, she told everybody at the party that night that she was 18, and we have another video from a different party right around that time where she's bragging about being 18. So I was pretty confident with that charge as well.
And you touched on this earlier, but you don't think this is going to derail his career?
Well, it's been derailed already to some degree.
Right, but getting back on track after.
And let me make it clear, I'm not Mr. Araiza's NFL agent. He has an NFL agent, or I'm sure he can answer that better than I can. But being a huge football fan, knowing Matt Araiza the way I know him, I do think he'll be able to get back in because he's one of the best punters ever in college football. Why wouldn't some team take a chance on him now that no criminal charges have been filed?
Along that line of questioning, at the end of the day, Matt Araiza had sex with a random teenager. I mean, what does
That's
that
true.
do to your future? According to the defense, took the girl into a room and had some other teammates have sex with her. I mean,
That's not what happened. Matt Araiza never went inside the house that night, and I dare anybody to show me some proof that he did, because I guarantee you he didn't do that.
Okay, let's take that part out of it.
Right.
Matt Araiza had random sex with a teenager at a party. That way.
How many NFL players have not done that? I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's
but-
right. I'm
yeah,
not saying
but-
it's right.
Yeah, but it's just ugly, right? Isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. I mean, again, he thought she was 18 years old. He was 21 at the time. He's only 3 years older. It's not like a 60-year-old man having sex with an 18-year-old girl or 17. It's different. Put your moral values on it if you will, but I just don't see it being that big of a deal. It happens all the time. I mean, let's face it, the guy's a good-looking guy. He was the #1 punter in the United States that year on a pretty good San Diego State football team. He had girls coming at him all the time. I'm not saying what he did was necessarily morally right, but it definitely wasn't criminally wrong, I'll put it that way.
You mentioned the video earlier. Were there other factors that you believe led to this decision by the DA's office?
Well, again, you have to kind of break it down because Matt Araiza's incident with this girl took place outside. The other potential defendants, their role was inside the house. Two very different, separate things. So when you only look at Matt Araiza's part of it, you know, you have to look at it that way. And, you know, my investigator found numerous witnesses to say that it was 100% consensual. And she found evidence, honestly, that I think helps the other defendants as well, and I think did help them as well. So they owe their possible freedom to Tanya Sabo as well. She did a heck of a job.
Carrie, your investigator standing next to you, is there any evidence that you uncovered during this that you can share that may have led to any of these decisions?
I just don't want to do that at this point. Trust me, she would love to talk about it. I would love to talk about it, but we still have that big civil case pending over Matt's head. And I just don't want to step on the civil defense attorney's toes by releasing that evidence at this point.
Speaking of the civil case, the attorney on the other side of this, and I know you're not the civil litigator in this, but is
Right.
saying basically that this is going to go forward, saying it's a very rare case where the criminal justice system achieves anything satisfactory for the victim of sexual assault. What's your
That's by Dan
response?
Gillian, correct?
What's your
Right.
response to that?
Well, look, Dan Gillian's upset because no criminal charges were filed. He can say what he wants to on Twitter. He said a lot about me on Twitter and about Mr. Araiza, but when it comes down to it, you know he's upset because no criminal charges were filed. That would have made his job a lot easier in this case. Now he knows he actually has to put in the work and actually prove this case in court, and I agree that his burden of proof is much lower in a civil case, but knowing what I know about this case, Dan Gillian's going to have a very hard time proving this case in front of a jury, a very hard time. Anybody else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
No problem.